Arne Slot made just 2 changes to the side that beat Bayer Leverkusen so comprehensively in the week, with Andy Robertson and Darwin Núñez coming in. Attacking the cop end for the first half, the home side took the lead in the 20th minute when Núñez superbly finished from a tight angle. It should have been 2-0 10 minutes later when Sulla released Núñez, and he did it all right until the finish, which he side-footed over the bar from the edge of the box. Villa had offered little threat in the final third, so Kevin Kelleher's 2 superb saves before the break were all the more impressive and vital. Slot replaced Núñez with Gakpo just after the hour, with Szoboszlai on for Jones. Gakpo fired over from the edge of the box, then couldn't quite get on the end of a superb low cross from Szoboszlai as the Reds sought the second goal they needed. They got it with 5 minutes remaining when Sulla raced clear after finished on his own with 2 other options alongside him. It was a sensational solo effort. On to player ratings. First up is Kelleher, who gets an 8 out of 10. Kelleher has little to nothing to do in the first half hour, but was then called upon to make a series of outstanding saves, which exemplifies the composure and concentration of Liverpool's elite backup goalkeeper. Next is Trent, who gets a 6 out of 10. Coped with positional mix-ups with Ibrahima Konate early on and looked to probe with intricate passes in the attacking third. Forced off midway through the half with a hamstring injury. A concern, but comes just ahead of a 2-week break. Next up is Konate, who gets an 8 out of 10. Dragged out of position at times, although that may have been more to do with his focus on detaining Ollie Watkins, but soon found order and dominance, particularly in aerial battles. Next up is Van Dijk, who gets an 8 out of 10. Van Dijk was, as usual, the platform upon which Liverpool built everything. No player had more touches, 122, nor completed more passes, 109 to 113, or passes into the final third 11. Next up is Robertson, who gets 8 out of 10. With the pressure on him given Kostas Tsimikas' recent form, Robertson was faced with a running battle with Villa winger Leon Bailey, which he dealt with expertly. An emphatic response from an under-fire veteran. Next up is Gravenberch, who gets an 8 out of 10. This time out, Gravenberch was the lone number 6, and this emphasized his importance in defensive work, including a pair of blocks to deny Morgan Rogers and Watkins. He was also crucial in progressing out of midfield, with this another showcase of Slot's newfound gem. Next up is Mac Allister, who gets a 7 out of 10. Given more license to attack as Gravenberch held it down, but found it hard as he was squeezed out by Villa's well-structured midfield unit. He was still effective, though, particularly in holding possession and keeping the pressure on, with it simply Mac Allister's time to sacrifice himself for those around him. Next up is Jones, who gets a 7 out of 10. Less noticeable than in recent games, but still knitted things together well, albeit with a few loose touches which, given Slot's comments in the build-up, served as a reminder of Liverpool's number 17 as a work in progress. Next up is man of the match Sulla, who gets a 9 out of 10. The most involved of Liverpool's starting forwards, Sulla created a number of chances as he span off and peeled away from Villa's own playmaker Lucas Digne. One brilliant early trivela to release Darwin Núñez was then followed by the assist on the counter for the Uruguayan's opener, a throwback to Sulla's blistering best under Jurgen Klopp. If that was a throwback, his clincher laid on reinforced that Sulla is still the best in the business. Next up is Diaz, who gets an 8 out of 10. Diaz loved his night as a number 9 in midweek, but it was back to his usual duties on the left flank 4 days later, which meant a lot of cutting inside onto his right foot and searching for openings. But the switch of Núñez for Cody Gakpo midway through the second half restored Diaz to that central role, and it suited the change to a more controlled approach, dropping deeper than Núñez to flood the midfield and link play, and one crucial interception in his own box. Next up is Núñez, who gets a 7.5 out of 10. Deployed in a more orthodox number 9 role after a varied approach of late, which left Núñez running off the shoulder in a game that saw Liverpool thrive on the transition. He netted a stunning goal on the break, but then wasted another in a similar situation, as the familiar feeling set in that Núñez is better when he has less time to think. At least twice as many shots as any other player in his 65 minutes on the pitch, 6, but with twice as many big chances missed too. Now on to the subs. First up is Bradley, who gets a 7 out of 10. Brings so much energy and thrust down that right flank. Picked things up quickly and kept Liverpool on top. Next up is Gakpo, who gets a 7 out of 10. A useful change of dynamic on the left, which freed Diaz up in the middle. Next up is Soboslai, who gets a 7 out of 10. Much the same as Jones, ensured the Reds stayed on the front foot. Now on to Arne Slot, who gets a 9 out of 10. His team selection was as expected, with the big calls to replace Gakpo with Nunez and Tsimikas with Robertson in line with his careful management of minutes across the squad. Slot's tactical nous kept Liverpool in charge after Nunez's opener, with a distinct change after half-time in order to control things more with steady periods of possession. He used his bench well again, with Gakpo's reintroduction and a tweaked role for Diaz particularly influential, while Endo both helped shore things up and kept Mac Allister from picking up a yellow card suspension. Exploiting Villa on the break seemed a clear game plan, which is credit to Slot and his staff as they leap every hurdle in front of them.